Not the blue people. I'm not talking about the blue people. Just figured I should clear that up right away. And no, not that. All right, whatever. Just roll the intro. So, I am a massive fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is without a question my favorite television series ever made. The characters, the animation, the music, the world, the fight choreography, the themes, and the way it addressed serious concepts of war and death for a kids show. I have such a deep connection to the series and have always wanted to talk about it on this channel. I vividly remember when it first premiered way back on February 21st of 2005. On that day, the chemicals of my 6-year-old brain changed and I was forever gonna be obsessed with this weird fucking bald kid that had an arrow on his head and his big ass bison that also had an arrow on his head. I watched the show, I bought the Lego sets, the trading cards, I rewatched the show with the fun little trivia facts that popped up on Nicktoons like 5 or 6 years later. I played the tie-in games. I watched the garbage movie on opening night for my birthday. It was the second worst birthday ever. Don't ask about the first. I even had this one copy of this like Avatar fan magazine that I read over and over and over again until the pages fell out. And when The Legend of Korra came out, there were a lot of high expectations. It was a follow-up to one of the best shows of all time with an all-new main character in massive shoes to fill. And while I don't think that show is perfect by any means, I love the character of Korra, and I think overall it was a great addition to the Avatar franchise. And now, what about the future? Aside from comics, novels, and that new Netflix live-action show, the original creators of the series, Bryan, Konietzko, and Dante DiMartino, have announced that they've created Avatar Studios and are working on a handful of projects and movies following the original gaang. I wrote that in the script with 2 A's. I realize it's like only a joke if you can read it. There you go. As well as a new series about the next Avatar after Korra. One of my favorite concepts in the Avatar universe is the Avatar cycle, the reincarnation of the Avatar throughout history and the cycle of elements they're born into. It creates so much potential to allow the stories in the world to be constantly evolving and changing, much in a similar vein to Doctor Who, which I was also hyper obsessed with as a kid. I think following the characters of Aang, Korra, and even Kyoshi and Yang-Chen in the novels has allowed the world to be fleshed out to a whole new level. And so with a new series following a new earthbending Avatar set after the events of Korra, there's so much that they can do with it in so many directions that they can go. I think that the original series was beloved for so many reasons, and the goal of this show should be to try and recapture that spirit for a new era. So here's my pitch for the next Avatar. Before we get started, this video is brought to you by INTOTHEAM. INTOTHEAM develops premium apparel that elevates self-expression and provides unparalleled comfort for wherever your passions take you. They're made up of a team of artists and creators who see clothing as a canvas to express what drives you. All of their products are handcrafted by a team of skilled artisans and made from the highest quality fabrics and eco-friendly inks. They sent me this one, which I really like, and they sent me a couple others, and they're so premium and comfortable feeling. I really like them. The graphic tees are great for expressing myself and my creativity, and their basic tees are great for something a little bit more sleek and everyday. I also never owned like a plain t-shirt, which is probably my fault, but the one they sent me is really nice. I really like it. These are just a couple of their designs, but their website is filled with super cool ones, as well as jackets, hoodies, pants, and flannels. I really love their products, and I love their mission statement. I think especially in this era where so many places are selling cheap, crappy, drop-shipped, low-quality products with like terrible fabrics that only last a week and AI-generated artwork, it's really refreshing to see a company like INTOTHEAM value the importance of quality in art and expression. And aside from just how good their products are, that's a big reason of why I'm comfortable supporting them. If you like their products and their designs, check out the link in my description and get 10% off on these premium made tees. Thanks so much to INTOTHEAM for sponsoring this video, and thanks to my patrons who are able to get all my videos early and ad-free for just $1 a month. Now, I'm not really loving the new live action show so far. I really like the cast for the most part, and the production design seems mostly impressive, but the pacing is really weird. Characters fall really flat, especially Katara. I don't like how much things are just explained to the audience, and it's making really weird decisions by splicing up ideas and concepts from a bunch of different episodes and just slapping them together without thinking of what they represent for each of the characters. Honestly, I'm just not really into any direct adaptations of animated shows. Even something like the live action One Piece, despite being a very good show, just wasn't for me because I prefer the animation. Especially something that's as good as Avatar is, with so much of its DNA being built for animation and the original creators leaving the production early on, I don't really have any desire to see the story get retold. And I would rather they instead adapted the comic stories after the events of the show, like The Promise or The Search, to use that same cast, but do something a little bit more original with it. But regardless, with this new show coming out and the new project projects from Avatar Studios on the way, people are talking about Avatar more than ever, and that resurgence in the franchise is super exciting. For this pitch, I really want to go back to basics and take a look at the things that made the original series so special. Korra isn't a bad show by any means. The animation and fights were a huge step up. Zahir and the Red Lotus are some of the coolest villains in the entire franchise, and it brought up a lot of really interesting and complex ideas that the original series wasn't able to. It was allowed to be more serious and mature, but never went overboard on that front, which I really appreciated. Korra is a great character with a great arc, and she was a really fun contrast to what we got with Aang.
I love your hair.
It's so you.
But it had the impossible task of being a sequel to Avatar. I think that the writing wasn't up to the same standards as the original, the dialogue felt a lot more stilted. I don't love a lot of the decisions they made with the original gang, again, spelled with 2 A's, don't know what I was thinking there. And the show was renewed season by season, meaning that the creators never knew if the current season was going to be their last, which hurt the way they told the stories. Nickelodeon literally randomly moved Korra to online only in the middle of a season without advertising it. Right after they did this, which is objectively hilarious, I'm sorry. But despite its problems, I know plenty of people who say that Korra is their favorite show and that she's their Avatar, which I completely understand and I respect that opinion. And I think it'd be so special and fitting for the same thing to happen with an earthbending Avatar and eventually another firebending Avatar, and so on and so forth, to let more people have that same experience for future generations. Also, earthbending was always my favorite growing up. Toph was the coolest, and I love the Hungar style of martial arts that they base it off of. And so it always felt like a personal attack on me that the Earth Avatar never got a show. I mean, even Roku got a lot of screen time in the original. Wait, not that Roku. And so this is what I would do if Nickelodeon and Bright kicked down my door and asked for what I do with this next Avatar series. By the way, there are obviously going to be some spoilers for the original series and for Korra. It's nothing like super crazy, so if you haven't seen Korra, you'll probably be okay, but like, it's a sequel, so season 1 of this new series would be called Book 1, Aang. Don't worry, I'm gonna get to it. He's not just in the thumbnail for clickbait, trust me. But first, we need to do a little bit of world building. If only there was some simple way to do that that was easy for the audience to understand and was a staple for the series. Fire. Air. Water. Earth. 90 years after the events of The Legend of Korra, the world has completely changed, and not necessarily for the better. For a short time, Avatar Korra's actions brought peace and balance, but like all peace, it didn't last forever. Kuvira may have been defeated and imprisoned, but her ideals remained. There were still people of the Earth Kingdom, civilians and political officials alike, who had her same mindset. The people of the Earth Kingdom felt that they needed protection. After the 100-Year War and the terror of Fire Lord Ozai, the siege of Ba Sing Se, and the destruction under Sozin's Comet, followed by Avatar Aang undermining their authority to create Republic City, the people of the Earth Kingdom needed to take a stand and make sure that it never happened again, to make sure that the world knew how strong they were. Earth King Wu tried to replace the monarchy with elected officials, but the election process was fundamentally flawed, and the radicalization of a lot of the civilians led to a new king taking over the throne who shared this view of what the Earth Kingdom should be. And this new Earth King was smart. He knew that with Avatar Korra alive, his endeavor would never be able to succeed and would fail just like with Kuvira. But he also knew that the next Avatar in the cycle was going to be an Earthbender. And so the Earth King waited. He waited and planned until the later years of Korra's life, until she passed away peacefully in her sleep, and then he set his plan into motion. The walls of Ba Sing Se were expanded, the Dai Li were reinstated and given unwavering control throughout the country. Earthbenders were taken from their families as children and enlisted into the Dai Li to form as the Earth Kingdom's new military, trained and propagandized since childhood to serve this new mission. It started out small, but it quickly grew into the Earth Empire all but in name. Other benders and people from the surrounding nations were exiled or imprisoned in the Earth Kingdom. Even some non-benders who fell through the cracks and opposed this new regime. Any Earth Kingdom civilians who rebelled were quickly dealt with and brainwashed. Republic City, once a bustling hub of diverse cultures and technological innovation, was attacked and conquered, all under the guise of protection. Avatar was always a very political show. It told stories about fascism and genocide in very mature and realistic ways while still being very much a kids show. It could have easily watered things down or left things to read between the lines, but instead it presented these very serious concepts up front and trusted its audience to understand it. And I think that's part of why it's so beloved. Korra was also political, and I really like how each season had a different villain that represented a different ideology. This was because, again, Nickelodeon screwed them over and made them work season by season, but I think because of that, the show wasn't able to really go in depth, and things just felt a little too surface level. Like, I see people say that Amon was supposed to represent communism, and like, I didn't get that at all. And so I think that this next series, which will probably get around 2 or 3 seasons, should focus on one singular big bad and ideology to challenge. I think that children's media can and oftentimes should be challenging. Not everything has to be full-on seriousness about death and war, but it's important for kids to learn about these concepts at a young age so they can better understand them when they're older. A lot of people want to reserve that for the edgy adult shows with sex and nudity and swearing and sanitized kids content to preserve the innocence. But that leads to the shows feeling like they're talking down to their audience on both sides. It's actually one of my issues with the live-action Netflix Netflix adaptation. They've minimized some of the complexities and edges from characters like Sokka, namely his misogyny, which is a big part of his arc in the early episodes. Despite how much the producers are trying to say that this show isn't a kid's show anymore because they want to appeal to Game of Thrones fans for some reason, it almost feels like the show doesn't trust its adult audience to understand that sexism is bad and Sokka is wrong for thinking that way. I think kids are a lot smarter than people give them credit for and are fully capable of handling complex and serious ideas, with complex and flawed characters and things not always being an easy answer. Now, you might be wondering what kind of time period this is taking place in, because Korra and Republic City took a lot of ideas from the 1920s. With its technology and aesthetic, a lot of people assume that this next series is going to go in that same direction and end up in the equivalent of the modern day. And while something like that could definitely be interesting, namely a story about how modern technology has overtaken the natural elements, covering the magic and the spirits with a layer of concrete, and it's now the duty of this new avatar to bring that back, that's not really the direction I want to go with in this pitch. And that's because, well, frankly, I just don't really like all the tech stuff. I really like the idea of Republic City being a hub for technological revolution because of the collection of diverse cultures and ideas, and I think that's super interesting. A mixing pot of earth, air, fire, and water leading to all this progress. And the aesthetic of that show is a ton of fun, but the cars were a little bit too much for me, and especially once they started doing full-on mechs, they kind of lost me there. A lot of people just kind of assume that the Avatar universe has a similar timeline to the real world, and 100 years after Korra would be the 2020s. But we have to remember that this is still a fantasy world with its own rules, and so it's not like this new Avatar would like bend iPhones or anything, you know? The sort of Eastern medieval fantasy vibe of the original series is part of what made it unique, and I think going too modern would lose some of that charm. If anything, I'd like to see more tech that's based explicitly on the abilities of the benders. We've seen the hot air balloons, tanks, and submarines in the original series, and it felt like such a huge leap to go from that to full-on cars and mechs and radios. I know that they use lightning benders to power the city, but it just felt like a bit too far for me personally. And also that would mean that like for every new Avatar and every new series, we'd go even further into the future, and it would just be a future cyberpunk type show, which like one Avatar like that could be fun, but like I don't necessarily know if I want that to be the staple of the universe moving forward. And so instead of making the story modern in a technological sense, I think it'd be more interesting to tackle real world modern ideologies and concepts. The surrounding nations, the Water Tribes, Fire Nation, and the rebuilt Air Nomads saw all of this happening and did nothing. They wanted to, but knew that any intervention would risk another 100-year war in the years that they spent rebuilding. And so they waited for the Avatar to save them, for the Avatar to return and bring balance. But the Avatar never came, because the Earth Kingdom never looked for him. The king figured if the Avatar could go undiscovered, there'd be less of a chance he'd stand in the way. They didn't search, they didn't perform any tests, they didn't do the thing with the toys that I thought was always really fun. Nothing. With the hopes that the Avatar would never return. And that brings us to today, where we meet Tai. Genuinely, the hardest part about this video is that like, it's 99% pure fan fiction, unlike all my other videos, which are super serious and not fan fiction at all. Everybody involved is basically like an OC, because all the old characters are just dead now. And I'm really bad with names. Like I literally just mixed Toph and Kai. So if you have a better name for this guy, let me know down below. Men will say that they don't write fan fiction and then make like a 45-minute pitch video on YouTube. Like all Earthbenders, Tai was taken away from his family as a baby and raised as a member of the Dai Li. He's only 16, so he hasn't been put in any combat or even left his station in Ba Sing Se, but he's been training his whole life to defend the Earth Kingdom, the greatest country in the world. And the Dai Li's job is to ensure that greatness, to be the bedrock of his nation. One of my favorite episodes of the original series was Book 3, Episode 2, The Headband. Honestly, Season 3 of that show is wild. It's genuinely banger after 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 this one's okay after banger after banger after banger after banger after banger, non-stop, just non-stop bangers. Even the finale I think is perfect. At first it seems like just a fun riff on Footloose, with Aang and the gang, again with 2 A's, sneaking into the Fire Nation and throwing a dance party for the kids. But what I love the most about it is the way that it showed how propaganda affects people. For the entire show, the Fire Nation has been built up as this country full of evil monsters, which makes sense. The military commits heinous atrocities and consistently keeps trying to kill a bunch of kids. But instead, what the show did was showcase the everyday person living in the Fire Nation. Aang goes to school, meets people his age, and sure, there are some jerks and some bullies, but there are also a lot of genuinely kind people. The problem is that they've grown up in a country that feeds them propaganda. The war is justified under the guise of sharing greatness. They're told that the Air Nomads, a culture of peace lovers and pacifists that was wiped away from existence, was actually an army that Sozin bravely defeated. Misinformation and lies to justify their war and their violence. And I'd want to explore something similar in this series and dive a little bit deeper into it. Honestly, take some cues from something like Full Metal Alchemist. What if the Avatar, this messiah type figure with a spiritual mission to bring balance, was born on the wrong side. And I think it'd be really interesting if Tai's personality was similar to Aang's when he was younger. Fun and easygoing and free-spirited. Earth and air are considered opposites, and I always think it's fun when a character's personality clashes with what their natural element is, like how Korra had more of a fiery personality. At his core, I want to make it extremely clear that Tai is a good and kind person. Honestly, I think that's a necessity of the Avatar mantle, for every one of them to at the very least have good and altruistic intentions regardless of whatever other flaws they may have. For the voice actors, I think it'd be really cool to get some of the original cast to come back and voice some of the characters. I know Dante, the voice of Zuko, just loves the franchise, and I'd love to see him give a new take. But for Tai, in my head, I'm picturing him being voiced by Josh Keaton. Yes, I'm casting the best Spider-Man as an earthbending avatar. This video is just for my 9-year-old self, but fuck it, it's my YouTube channel, I can do what I want. We also meet his childhood best friend, Kenshi. Again, names are not my strong suit. I just named him after the guy from Mortal Kombat. Kenshi is a few years older than Tai and is like an older brother to him. He's a world-class earthbender, a well-respected fighter for the Dai Li, even at his age. He protected Tai when he was younger and helped train him to fight. I really want to spend some time and build the two of them up and showcase their relationship and see what their lives are like within the walls of the city. Tai and Kenshi end up running into a group of bullies, other members of the Dai Li who've picked on Tai for nearly his whole life, and the group is harassing an old cabbage man. Tai steps in to try and help the old man, but the head bully steals what little money he has and runs off. Tai ends up chasing him throughout the streets, getting separated from Kenshi, and it all culminates with him trying to defend himself from the group of bullies. He tries to fight back, but he's not nearly as good an earthbender as Kenshi, and he's outnumbered. Without thinking, Tai punches at the air, and a ball of flame erupts from his fist and burns one of them. The bullies stop dead in their tracks, shocked at what just happened. There's no mistaking it. Firebending. Word spreads quickly to Earth Kingdom officials. Immediately, they put Tai through rigorous training, trying to use this opportunity to their advantage. But because they don't have any other benders to teach him, at the moment, he's only just barely able to firebend. I really love that talk with Iroh and Zuko in the original series about elements. How he used waterbending techniques to redirect lightning. How each nation represents fundamental ideals, and how important it is to have an understanding of other cultures to grow your own understanding of the world and yourself. And so without these other ideas and cultures, this new Earth Kingdom isn't able to have that knowledge and pass it on to Tai. Not to mention having no way of teaching him how to airbend or waterbend. So even at his best, Tai's firebending is rigid and flat and not even close to his full potential. But that's okay, because the Earth King has an idea. A way to still harness the power of the Avatar for his mission and create the ultimate weapon for the Earth Kingdom, the Avatar State. Just like General Fong in Book 2, Episode 1, they try to find a way to activate Tai's Avatar State at will. And this time, after months of experimentation and testing and even the Dai Li's brainwashing, they're able to do it. For months, they harness the full power of the Avatar, letting him lose control as the ultimate force of destruction. Tai is completely brainwashed during these moments, completely blacked out, and so he has no memory of what he's doing or the people that they're forcing him to hurt. But in his head, he's okay with it because he's been training his whole life to serve the Earth Kingdom, to be the bedrock of his nation. And as the Avatar, this is what he's been put on the Earth to do. But the world outside of the walls of Ba Sing Se learn of Avatar Tai and the destruction he's caused. And soon, the Avatar, always a messiah-type figure to bring balance to the world, quickly becomes a symbol of fear and death. One night, Tai is outside when he sees a figure standing in the shadows. It's the old man from before. He calls out to him, but the man says nothing. Without a word, the man spreads his arms and the earth around him turns to lava, sending it straight for Tai. Tai defends himself from the old man. The fight gets intense, with him using every ounce of his skill to try and fight back. Before Tai is able to land a single blow, out of nowhere his eyes begin to glow and his body stops, like something's controlling him. The old man stops and smiles, looking at the spirit that presents itself from beyond the grave. His old friend. Korra, it really is you. Good to see you again, Bolin. Because of the experiments and the brainwashing from the Dai Li, Tai's spiritual connection is different than that of the other avatars. He can't control the avatar state, but he's more in tune with his past lives and the spirit of Rava. And he's able to communicate with Korra's spirit more easily without meditating or entering the spirit world. This would make Korra's spirit an active participant in everything, or at the very least she's able to observe and communicate with just Tai and only show herself on special occasions. We can see how Korra has grown and changed as a person. Maybe now she's more mature than she once was and can be a guiding hand for Tai. We learn that Bolin has been hiding in Ba Sing Se, searching for the avatar in secret. He's part of a new generation of freedom fighters, a small group of rebels scattered around the Earth Kingdom fighting against the regime. Maybe some other Korra supporting characters could still be alive, like Jinora, Asami, or maybe Mako. It's hard to say how aging works in this universe because Jesus Christ, Kyoshi lived a long time, but I also don't want to make too much of this show just pointing and saying, look, hey, it's somebody you know. We don't need an avatar equivalent of the Glup Shadow. But seeing Bolin at this age and how much he's changed as a person and the result of this regime could be super interesting. Maybe he's lost a lot of his joy and humor because of the horrors that he's seen. But reconnecting with Korra's spirit through Tai is able to bring a little bit of that life back. Bolin smuggles Tai outside the walls of the city, his first taste of the outside world, and he shows him what the Earth Kingdom and the Dai Li are really doing to their citizens. Innocent people in cages, imprisoned, and killed, all by the people that Tai thought were keeping them safe. He even sees glimpses of death and destruction caused by an impossibly powerful force, himself, the things that the Dai Li made him do while in the Avatar state. When you grow up indoctrinized and propagandized, it can be really hard to see the truth. It is very difficult to rethink your entire life and everything you've known to be true. For some people, it's a long long and slow journey of realization, and for others, it can happen in an instant because of tragedy. Either way the journey happens, the result is still the same. And there's only one way forward to redemption and overcoming that guilt. One of my favorite characters from the original series is Uncle Iroh. At first, he seems like just the silly, fun uncle to contrast the dark and brooding Zuko, but we peel back his layers and his backstory, and we learn the reasons that he's different from the rest of the Fire Nation. It wasn't until the war affected him personally, with the death of his son, that Iroh saw the error of his actions and his nation. And I think that guilt is part of what makes that backstory so interesting. If he had realized sooner and noticed the signs and spoken up earlier, his son would still be alive, along with all the other lives lost because of him. And that feeling of guilt and shame forced him to look inward and redeem himself. And on the flip side, we have Zuko's redemption, which I believe is one of the best character arcs of all time. Unlike Iroh's, which happened before the show began, Zuko's was a long, grueling journey filled with mistakes and pain. Growing up propagandized, the son of an abusive fascist dictator, conditioned to believe the only thing in life that matters is his honor and changing who he is to satisfy his abusers. And even after joining Team Avatar and seemingly being accepted as one of the good guys, we still see that Zuko is racked with enormous guilt over the things that he did. And that guilt is a driving factor in helping Aang defeat Ozai. And I think it could be really interesting to explore a similar story and a similar redemption, but this time with the Avatar. How does someone like the Avatar react to that kind of guilt? Tai wasn't in control of his own body, but he still feels responsible. And feeling like if he had just paid more attention, saw through the propaganda, he could have realized it sooner and prevented it all. But now, the only thing he can do is fix it. Bolin tells Tai that they have a plan. He reveals a young Sky Bison that he kept hidden, who can take Tai out of the city into a firebender who can properly train him. But he has to leave now or else it'll be too late and he can't bring anyone with him. Tai runs off to find Kenshi, who's leading a search party looking for him. Tai tells him everything about Bolin, about what's happening outside the walls, about all the people that he hurt, and how he has a way out but they have to leave now. And Kenshi goes quiet. That's when Tai realizes. He knew. He knew the whole time and he kept it from him. Kenshi tries to explain himself, that it's for a good reason. The violence is to protect them and keep their people safe. Tai's only 16, they were gonna tell him eventually, but only when he was ready. Tai is heartbroken, his best friend lying to him. Kenshi tells Tai that he can't leave. The Earth Kingdom just put out an order for something big, a massive, full-scale expansion of the Earth Kingdom, to grow their home and share it with the rest of the world, starting with the Southern Water Tribe. Kenshi doesn't say as much, but Tai knows what it really is. An invasion. It'll be the start of another 100-year war. More conquest, more death, more destruction, and Tai doesn't want any part of that anymore. Tai tries to run away, but Kenshi attacks him. The two of them fight, with Tai not wanting to hurt his friend. He's nearly captured, but Bolin steps in and helps him escape back outside the walls. Bolin fights off members of the Dai Li, but as the bison starts flying, he gets captured. Tai flies away on the back of the bison, away from Ba Sing Se, away from the only place he called home, alone, with nobody but the spirits of Avatar's past to help guide him. And that's where the rest of the show begins. Because that's right, that was just the pilot, baby. We got a whole series left. It would probably have to be a 2-parter or maybe even a 3-parter to really spend the time we need establishing these ideas. But the meat of the show would be Tai traveling around and righting the wrongs of his nation, seeing more of the destruction firsthand and being driven both by his guilt and his need for justice to put a stop to it and help people, and rebuilding the reputation of the Avatar for the people of the Earth Kingdom. All the while, Kenshi is blamed for Tai's escape and has been tasked by the Earth King to hunt him down and bring him back to the Dai Li. I really liked the road trip aspect of the original series and how it lended itself really well to the episodic nature of the show by making the characters all travelers. Tai doesn't have to fly around on a Sky Bison. I liked how Appa was like home base, and honestly, it'd be good for branding, let's be real. Like, look at that fucking dude. He's so cute. I love the Sky Bison so much. But I also really love Naga, and so they could have some fun with it, and it could be some kind of silly hybrid animal, just so long as it's not a regular bear. That'd be too weird for the show. It also might be fun if we see Tai and the bison grow closer as time goes on. At first, he's just an animal, but soon he becomes like Tai's best friend. Now, you might notice that there isn't really a lovable band of misfits for Tai to go on this adventure with, and that's very much intentional. One of the best parts of the original series was the dynamic between the gang. Again, spelled it with 2 A's. That cast of characters is genuinely so fantastic. Their interactions and personalities and chemistry, the way that conflict arose not just because the plot demanded it, but because it felt like a natural progression of the characters' flaws. Aang, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko, and even Suki would even be the best character on any other show. Korra tried to replicate this, and while I like some of the supporting cast of that show, namely Tenzin, Asami, and Bumi, I don't think that they quite reached those highs. Character personalities weren't as clearly defined like the original cast. Like every season, it kind of felt like they were just like rolling the dice to figure out what to give characters to do. The cast of the original series was genuinely lightning in a bottle, and instead of trying to redirect that lightning and put it into another bottle, I think it'd be interesting to go in a different direction. Instead, Tai would be alone on his journey, accompanied only by the spirits of the past Avatar, sort of like the Last Last Ronin seeing the spirits of his fallen brothers. And it would be these spirits that teach Tai the rest of the elements. Instead of trying to find different masters, he could learn from past avatars directly. But there's a problem. In The Legend of Korra, Korra was forced to sever her connection with her past lives, seemingly breaking that for all future generations of Avatar. It was a decision that I think worked really well for Korra and her character arc, forcing her to solve her problems on her own and deal with the guilt that came with that failure. But at the same time, I think it kind of limits the potential of the future stories, especially now that we have more information about avatars like Kyoshi and Yang-Chen from the novels. I did really love the introduction of Avatar 1, the first Avatar. I don't think I needed to see the full details of the origins explained to me with like the spirit of Rava and everything. I tend to like things being left more up to mystery, but what they added fit within the world and was a good addition, and I'd like to try and expand on that. And so the main goal of the series would be for Tai to reconnect with his past lives. Right now, he only has Korra, but he knows if he wants to put a stop to the Earth Kingdom's regime and prevent another war, he's gonna need someone else's help. Avatar Aang. See, I told you I'd get to it. Korra and Tai try to connect with Aang through the spirit world, but because of the severance, his spirit is fractured. He doesn't have all of his memories and is reverted to being a kid again. And so throughout the first season, in their travels, they visit places important to Aang, and Tai meditates on them. Key locations from the show, like the Southern Air Temple, or where Zuko first saved him from Zhao, but also places from when he was an adult. The ruins of Republic City, where he proposed to Katara, where Tenzin first learned to airbend, and even where he had to bury Appa. Just kidding. That'd be, I don't want to watch that. Never mind. I take that one back. In his journey, we can come across some familiar spirits like Ko the Face Stealer, Heibai, the Painted Lady, Yue, and maybe even Iroh. Is this just an excuse to get Aang back and have fan service because at its core this is just a YouTube video? Yes, it is. We don't need an Avatar equivalent of the Glup Shido. And with each meditation, Aang's spirit becomes more whole, and we get flashbacks showcasing his adult life and filling in those gaps. And his spirit is forced to grapple with the feeling that all of his work, defeating the Fire Nation and bringing balance, was seemingly for nothing. Learning that it's a constant process to stop fascism and violence, not just something that can be defeated forever. And later seasons could maybe do something similar with Roku, Kyoshi, Yang-Chen, and even Avatar 1. Or this could be a cool way for us to learn about even more past avatars that we haven't met yet. And during Tai's travel, Kenshi would be hunting him down at every turn. His childhood best friend, now turned bitter enemy. Man, I really am leaning into the Spider-Man stuff here, aren't I? Now, Kenshi's story could very well be a redemption arc where he slowly learns the real truth about what the Dai Li are doing and eventually changes sides, similar to Zuko. But I also think it could be equally interesting if Kenshi never gets that redemption. At every opportunity, Tai could reach out to Kenshi to try and help him, to teach him, and get his best friend back. But each time it never works, and Kenshi goes further and further in the opposite direction. And maybe Tai has to learn the hard truth that some people just aren't willing to change. It's this kind of painful realization you have to make, where you realize that no matter how hard you try, some people, even people you thought were good and kind and called friends, aren't capable of growth. Some people have spent too long in the propaganda machine, can't see past what they were taught growing up, or even just flat out don't have the empathy to make that realization. And trying to reason with them is just gonna get more people hurt. Now, you might be saying that this whole idea is too similar to the original series, that the Earth Kingdom is just replacing the Fire Nation, Kenshi is just another Zuko, and it even shares a lot of similar ideas from Korra with Kuvira, and we're retreading a lot of the same ground. And especially since one of the best parts of Korra was how it never tried to be a carbon copy of the original, I can see how that could be frustrating. And you would be right. But that's kind of my point. The main theme that I want the series to explore is the idea that history repeats itself, that even good guys can go bad. Fascism doesn't end with just beating the bad guys, and if we don't catch the signs early, it will always rear its ugly head. A major tactic of fascism is to eliminate history. That's why I want to put so much of a focus on Tai reconnecting with his past lives, staying in contact with history and never letting it fall by the wayside. And I also want to explore complacency. In later episodes and maybe later seasons, I want to see Tai challenge the leaders of the other nations, the ones who stood by and watched as the Earth Kingdom became the exact thing that they claimed to be protecting themselves against. The leaders waited for the Avatar to return and put a stop to it and are the reason that it became as bad as it did. You can't just ignore the rise of fascism. You can't sit by and watch and hope that someone else will solve the problem. And you can't wait around for violence and hate to affect you personally before you start to care, because by that point, it'll be too late. I think that the Avatar universe has so much potential. Literally, it's designed for limitless possibilities with stories. I joked that this video is mainly for my 9-year-old self, but it's kind of true. This is kind of embarrassing, but when the book 1 finale aired, the first thing that I did was go to my room and like draw up a whole fan pitch for what I wanted the next season to be. It didn't make any sense. I had it be an earthbending avatar, like as if Aang had died off screen and I just skipped over water for some reason. And Azula was still the villain. It didn't make any sense. It was stupid. I was a kid. I was stupid. Avatar was a series that got me interested in writing and storytelling. I learned so much about myself and the world through this show, and I honestly don't think I'd be the same person that I am today without this series. And that's why I want to see more of it. I want to see it expanded to more shows, more movies, more comics, more books. Hell, give me a good Avatar video game. This universe is so vast and full of life, and if it were to continue through the future, it has so much possibility to inspire people in the same way that it helped me. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you want to see more videos about Avatar, let me know down below. I want to talk about it more. Let me know what you would want to see from the next Avatar series, whether it be after Korra or following the original gang, again with 2 A's, or even set in the past. If you like this video, be sure to let the YouTube algorithm know and hit the like button and subscribe. Special thanks to Alto the Sting, Ans, Cabbage Boy, Cassidy, Caroline Brenneman, Chicken McDoofus, Cooksey, Cosmic Tragedy, Danny Boy, DJ Ricky 08, Dreamer Who, Eden Kenna, Egan McFarlane, Hannah C, Howard Bell, Iron Ninja, Jake Selig, Corey's Not Fresh, Murren 09, Pencil Fan, Popcorn Eater 123, Spectacular Clyde, Tim Neufeld, Trans Huntress, Troy says Bi-Razor's lame, Tyler Goodrich, Jesh Kapoor, Zachary Stonebreaker, and Zero to Hero 148 for being spectacular fanboys on my Patreon. This has been Troy Boy 17 coming at you live. Be responsible, and I'll see you around.